Hello and welcome to Current Wave. I'm your host, Ayla Wayman, and in this podcast, we meander through our shared delusions and stumble into ethereal shit talking as we dive into the waves of the human experience. I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 10 of Current Wave. I'm your host, Ayla Wayman, and today we are joined by my friend Bailey Rollins. I'm so excited to have her on finally. Bailey and I have sort of been circling each other for the past 2 years. We had put together a really amazing fertility program a few years ago, and yeah, we've just been looking for ways to collaborate and touch in together. I first heard her speak during a Kundalini teacher training with my friend Siri Rishi, and my mom was doing the teacher training, and Bailey was doing a workshop with the group. And my mom was so taken by her that she called me during the workshop and had me on speakerphone so that I could listen to Bailey, which was such a treat. And I immediately felt such a resonance with her view of the birthing process and the pre-birthing process, preparing the body, mind, heart, spirit, connecting with spirit babies, and really calling in your partner, calling in alignment to bring new life into the world. And we touch on so many amazing things during this episode. It is really rich and juicy, and we actually really had to be very intentional with our time because all of these topics are powerful and vast, and we really could go into them in such depth. And we really did, and yet there were so many stones unturned. So I imagine at some point down the line, we will have a second edition because it was just such a beautiful conversation. So anyway, Bailey's philosophy on this process of creating a new life is just so potent and powerful to me. And I think that she got into this work for the same reason that I'm really interested in this work, is that our lives here on earth start at birth. And the more consciousness that we can bring to that moment, the more care and love and like honoring the soul from the start, I think, the easier perhaps lives we'll have, the more we'll be aligned with our paths earlier, have stronger sense of self and greater health and well-being if we bring a lot of consciousness into the preconception process and the birthing process. On all of those levels, right? Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. It really is this portal of creation. And I absolutely love that there's still so much mystery around how souls come into being and the female body and this insanely incredible process of creating life. It's how all of us are here. It is integral to our beingness as humans. We are all connected to this process, and I think that the more we remember this, the better. It's just so innate. It's so insanely beautiful. And I have always been drawn to this world and thought I would perhaps have a career as a midwife or a doula. I was really interested in, the medical fields, the medical world, and really from that standpoint of supporting mamas and babies coming into the world and birthing together. And who knows, maybe one day that will happen. But for now, I just have so much interest and love for this area. And I do think it's just fundamental. And the more conversations we have around this topic that are nuanced and curious and open, because birth has become a medical event, and yet there is nothing about birth that it is a medical event. It is a family event, it is a spiritual event, it is so many other things, and yet it's really been um, taken by the medical industrial complex. And I think that returning birth to its rightful place and order is really an important step and process in humanity's rising, in humanity's awakening, and in this next era. So I am deeply honored and grateful to have Bailey on the podcast. And she is a wealth of knowledge and an incredible human. She's so fun and funny and real. And it would be a dream to have her as a doula one day. If you are in the New York area, she is New York City area. She serves there as a all full spectrum doula, birth, postpartum, all of the things. And she's a fertility coach, a lactation consultant. She really does it all. Um, and if you are not in that area, she would love to hear from you and connect with you. And she is around. She does virtual work as well and consultations. So if you are in that birthing portal or process, I highly recommend checking out her resources and having a conversation with her if possible, because she just has a beautiful full spectrum approach to. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to get into all things fertility, birth, lots of fun topics to discuss today.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, welcome everyone to Current Wave. Our guest today is Bailey Rollins, and she is a certified birth and postpartum doula, IBCLC lactation consultant,
Mm-hmm.
hypnobirth instructor, and fertility coach with over a decade of experience. She
Mm-hmm.
supports clients from preconception to postpartum with holistic East meets West approach with yeah, just so much knowledge and so much care and love. And yeah, Bailey is also the author of Stay Fertile and offers virtual coaching and education for families across the country and in-person doula support in New York City. And yeah, we've been circling each other for a while and
Yes, we have.
wanting to connect and collaborate and do things. So this is our first conversation in the
Yeah.
world, and I'm super grateful to have you here.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm super excited to get into it.
Me as well. Yeah. Well, I would love to just get into it and
Yeah.
start with just speaking about fertility in general. I think like I'm 33, and so this is very much the world that I live in of friends and preparing our bodies for birth and if we want children, etc. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of ideas, some misconceptions,
Yeah.
fear,
Yeah.
different stories and experiences that people have. It seems like the fertility journey is not a one size fits all. And yet, I think there's a lot of wisdom and guidance that is not necessarily in the front and center of the fertility conversation. So I'd love to hear your
Yeah.
perspective and what you think and fertility in today's world.
Totally, 100%. Fertility is more than just biology. People, like you said, carry so many stories and fears and expectations around fertility itself. And there's a lot of pressure too. Like, when to do it, the timing, and, hurry up and do it, or wait until the right time, and when is the right time. Um, but birth is really not linear. It's deeply
Mm,
layered. It's like
mm,
like I would like to call it like a circular layer, like the Earth's crust.
I love
And it's influenced by everything: our stress, our lifestyle, our thoughts and beliefs about our bodies and our partners, and having the idea or even the notion of becoming a parent.
mm,
Um, you know, Obviously thinking forward into like pregnancy and birth, and there's a lot there as well. So really, fertility, or anyone who's thinking about their fertility or preserving their fertility, I'd say like it's an invitation to really deeply listen to your body if you
mm,
haven't done that before, right? We live in a world where it's very go go. It's very like just ask the doctor. The doctor will tell you about your body. But fertility is a kind of like, let's actually figure out what we need our own self first, and then we can actually go into a conversation with a doctor with information, like, because sometimes they miss it, right? Or sometimes they overdiagnose or underdiagnose. And so if you are already connected with your cycle, with your rhythm, with how you're digesting food, for example, you can, even if you do need medical intervention, you're going in with like strong
yeah,
with a deep understanding of what it is you're getting out of their services. You know what I
mm,
mean?
yeah,
So as a fertility doula, I really like coach people like on that unique path. So whether they're like really trying to just be proactive, and they are in their late 20s, early 30s, and the clock hasn't started yet,
right.
or they're actively trying, you know what I mean? And maybe there's some challenges, or maybe they are doing IUI and IVF.
Mhm.
It really is a delicate time period, and there's a lot to know. So just to have that extra layer of support is so pivotal. And I absolutely love to see like the transformation to go from full of fear, disconnected from the body, to feeling empowered, entering, the very beginnings of motherhood.
Mm, yeah, I love all of that. Taking it in so much, and it
Yeah.
feels like such a beautiful thing. Like I hope, and my sphere is people who are pre-baby, and I think like having and being exposed to this knowledge early on just sets you up for that success, to start to listen to your body if that's not something that you're tuned into, with all those little steps as this process, and just in life in general, and especially being a woman and all of the phases and different versions of ourselves and our hormones that we go through in a life. And so it's
Mhm.
so beautiful. Like I'm excited to just learn from you and take all of
Yeah,
this
it's never too early to start. Honestly,
away.
like, I'm in the midst of creating a really robust holistic sex education program for
Yeah,
teenagers, because for me,
amazing.
as soon as you're a woman, when you start to bleed,
Yeah.
you're a young woman, but you're a woman. And so you have the power to create life now. So you're a woman now. And so to have that deep understanding of your cycle, and how to have a baby and how to not have a baby, or postpone it for a later time in life, is just like, it's just so important. You know what I mean? And there's so many teen women who find themselves pregnant in those younger years. I'd say sub 25, for
Yeah.
me, is like teen pregnancy.
I'm gonna say the
I
world
just
has
say
shifted so much. I know.
sub 21, you're young. And so, if you're having sex and you're bleeding monthly, then you should know about birth, and all the layers and all the steps, and what the difference between a midwife and an OB, and what is doula support, and like any stage, but definitely when we're young professionals building our careers, finding love, traveling the world, it's like, let's just add in fertility awareness.
100%. And in like that empowered way, right? Like not just taking the pill just because, like understanding that there's a whole world here.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the right option for some people. And there's just so much, which we'll get into.
No,
But
we're gonna do
yeah, it's so empowering, right? Like coming from that really empowered place of
that.
having resources and knowledge so that you can create as much as we have control over the lives that we want to live and do the things we want before children, and know that there's a time and a place for that, and just have choices and options and an empowered view of birth. And I love that you want to bring this to younger people. Like, as you said, the younger, the better.
The younger, the better. I mean, actually, side fun fact:
Yeah.
um, babies in the womb masturbate.
Amazing. Yeah.
We are born seeking pleasure. So sex is a normal part of,
Yeah.
puberty and the rites of passage that we go through at different stages of our life. And to take the fear or the shame around it for kids to really say, like, there's nothing to be ashamed of to have your period. It's actually something to be celebrated.
Yeah.
It's not some chore that, you just have to deal with and boys don't. It's your power.
Totally.
The blood mysteries, the red tent, all that. That's some other topics, but yeah.
Totally. It's so important. And I feel like we're sort of touching on this question, but I would love to go into what fertility means to you on a deeper level.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it feels like we're in
Ooh,
that
I'm
now.
getting shivers.
I know. Me
You
too.
know, So really, it's your life force. It's a
Mm.
vital. It's like the fifth vital sign. Like you're alive because you're breathing. You have your pulse, your heart. You also know you're alive as a woman when you're bleeding regularly each month with the moon, right? Like we're ruled by the moon, and the moon has many phases, and she doesn't always look the same, and she's not always in the same mood. Right?
Yeah.
A Pisces moon is different from a Taurus moon, different from an Aries moon, as we know. And so we kind of have these, cycles in our life. But the bottom line of it, really, fertility is like creative power, right? So whether
Mm.
you're using your fertility to actually make a baby or a human being, it's not just that. It's your business, it's your life, it's your brand, it's your family, it's your tribe. Like we're constantly creating, and so that
Mm.
life force that you have, to one bring through in your body like new life. How do we create space for that baby, not just in our body, right? Because sometimes we're tight and we're resisting, and then babies are breached because there's like mom is just so tight in the womb space. In
Yeah.
general, women hold a lot of our traumas and our pain in our abdomen, in our pelvis, and in our hips. So that's where the baby lives. So you got to think about it like that.
Yeah.
How do we open up
Oh,
physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually for this new life to have space in our life? Like if we're working 7 days a week, 50-hour weeks, like do you have space to have a baby? Maybe your fertility struggle there's a shift that needs to happen there. So as I mentioned in the beginning, it's layered,
yeah.
right? But it's really like, how do we create an idea, nurture it, gestate it, and then give life to it and let it and surrender it, right? And sometimes
Mm.
that's really hard to do. And so we can constantly see that in our life as practice for an actual baby, right? A business, you're birthing, and there's contractions, setbacks,
Oh,
right? Right? Like I'm contracting right now, or there's a setback right now. What do I have to do? I have to breathe through this moment. And then what happens after the contraction? There's an expansion.
mm.
There's an opening. There's a baby. There's a business. There's a relationship, right? So for me, fertility is very, very sacred. It's very spiritual, and it applies to anyone, even if you don't consider yourself particularly spiritual or particularly woo-woo or religious. It tends to have that effect when we're tapped in.
Yeah.
Um, that's a really cool thing, and it's really about nourishing your body on every level.
Mm.
Body, mind, and spirit. Anything that supports and uplifts you supports and uplifts your baby.
I love that. That's so
Mhm.
profound and so beautiful. And I feel that so deeply in everything that you said, of just that it's such a allegory. I'm not sure even what the word is, but just that relationship of all things are always so connected, and the way that our cycles are connected to the moon and our fertility, and like that ebb and flow of everything, that contraction and expansion,
Yes.
is something that I'm always I've formed a lot of my business around the seasons and those tides of moving forward and pulling back and gaining our strength in those seasons of pulling back and gaining our like a deeper trust for life itself and creation itself. And it
Yeah,
feels like fertility is just another touch point of that. Like it's a
100%.
journey, it's a experience, and how can we, as you said, relax into it, breathe into it. It's
And
so
flow.
potent and flow. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
it's
so
really
much
about
to
flow.
unpack.
It's really about flow. All the elements are at play: earth, air, fire, spirit, like they're all
Totally. Which is just makes so much sense because, creating a
water.
baby
Right?
is just,
I mean, the water, right?
yeah.
The blood is the water.
Mhm.
Agua de la vida, they say like
Mhm.
it's water of life. The baby floats in sacred waters, right, for 9 months or 10 months actually. And then we just to get there we bleed the water like so it's all, and then we lactate the water right, so it's like
Yeah.
it's a very watery experience too, but all the elements are definitely at play. And to that's why I really love using different Eastern medicines, like for example Ayurveda, that will help you like balance different energies in your body if there are imbalances,
Mm.
um
So beautiful.
because
Yeah.
a lot of the infertility stuff is just an imbalance.
Right.
And once the whether it could be a physical one, and that's an easier fix, right? Oh, you're low on iron, or oh, you're up your vitamin D, and boom, we got pregnant. You know what I mean? For some people it's like that.
Yeah, it's simple. Yeah.
And it's like, what? Oh, like gave up gluten, now I'm pregnant. Like sometimes it's like that simple,
Yeah.
and other times it's like, no, it's deeper work, it's ancestral, or it's from your
Mm.
own birth and gestation period, that there's healing that needs to happen there.
Yeah. And you did touch on this, and I just want to go back to it because I feel like I'm seeing this and I'm curious about it. I don't so much know. I kind of
Yeah.
have like a hypothesis about
Okay.
some infertility in the modern world of
Mhm.
women like working 7 days a week, not having that space, even though that might be a core desire, but not
Mhm.
realizing that connection to like overworking their body, kind of
Mhm.
being in their masculine also, like really going, running businesses, doing amazing things that I think women are absolutely built to do.
Yeah.
And it's not like, to me, there's some receiving that needs to happen or stepping into some receptive mode to
Yeah.
allow that life to come in.
1,000%.
I'm
Yeah.
curious
Most of
about
my
like
clients fit
your
that.
thoughts.
Yeah. Most of my clients fit that demographic, like super
Yeah.
powerhouse babes.
Yeah. Which is
you know,
amazing.
who are very empowered in their lifestyle and their careers and their relationships, and they know what they want. Also New York City, so that's the vibe here. Like women
Yeah.
are we're taking over kind of silently and non-silently.
Yeah.
um, all the futures female stuff. On the one thing, it's all kind of rhetoric and a little like, whatever. But on a deeper level, yes, like the feminine power is rising on the planet.
Yeah.
Um, we are in an Aquarian age, where it's not about the individual, it is about the collective as well. And the collective does well because each individual is doing well. And so
Mhm.
we make it up, and breaking free from things that might have kept our ancestors locked down, either mentally, physically, financially, emotionally, or spiritually. Like we're like this opportunity to have both. We're not just the housewife who's financially dependent on their husbands, let's say the standard kind of relationship, um right, but then we also want to be moms and we want to be present.
Yeah. It's a
Right,
lot.
we want to raise our babies too, like having help and having your tribe, having your doula and your night nurse and your nanny, like that's all part of the village that I do believe women deserve and need to be really healthy, like, but at the same time, not to sacrifice that connection and bond with our children and that slowing down time. And a lot of women who get to this point in life where they're like, okay, I want to have a baby, but they've been on birth control for so long,
Right.
pushing it away, literally energetically, birth control is like, I don't want it, stay away from me, push away, away, away.
Yeah.
So that transition of bringing it back is sometimes a long one. And because, and we'll talk about that maybe later, but
Yeah.
in general, there is definitely the shift of moving from the yang, from the masculine, the go get, I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah.
Birth is a mystery.
Yeah.
And so there are kind of, again, best practices, and it is our very most natural state to be fertile, and the body is always trying to go back to a fertile state constantly. However, we live in a city, we work too much, we do power workouts all the time, we're tight. We may not be eating real whole foods, we may be using stimulants like caffeine and alcohol, things that diminish egg and ovarian quality. And then stress is I don't care, like alcohol and stress for me are equal. And it's not just external stress, but it's also internal stress. Are you overanalyzing? Are you like a control freak? And a lot of us successful entrepreneurs are super control freaks. That's how we manifest. So it's like a positive thing in our business if it becomes a deficit in this process, because fertility and pregnancy is a feeling state. One of my favorite midwives says you can't think your way through labor or pregnancy, you have to feel your way. And if you're thinking, it's similar to like thinking your way to an orgasm. You know what I mean? It probably won't happen from a woman's perspective, right? If you don't feel safe, if your mind is running, how do I look? How do I feel? How do I smell? Right? You probably won't have an orgasm. You're worried about your taxes. Not super sexy.
All up here. You're not
Up here.
in the body.
You're not in the body. You're not in the body. And a lot of it is trauma. And that word gets thrown around, but it really does. Childhood trauma is your own birth trauma, your mom's, your grandmother's stories. It might even belong to you, to be honest.
Right.
So yeah, it's really about shifting and helping women understand that taking a step back and receiving and asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. Valuing yourself, investing in your pregnancy and birth experience. We can drop $100,000 on a wedding dress, which is great. Do that. Okay. Look fabulous. But then not consider a budget for your fertility or your pregnancy journey, and it's like, wait a minute, we need to switch the priority just a little bit, because your birth can have a ripple effect on your life, on your health, on your longevity. In traditional Chinese medicine, they say that how a woman gives birth and the first 6 weeks postpartum is a mirror reflection to the next 40 years of her life. So if she rests, in Asia and Africa, they do something called a resting in, or kind of the sitting in 40-day, usually depending on the culture, it's a different time.
Right.
But it's a period of total pampering, rest, and nourishing foods and support for the mom, so that she can actually be in TCM. They say if you care for yourself super well after you give birth, you can be in a better state health-wise, or more vital than you were pre-pregnancy. You can use that energy of everything shifting around and getting all discombobulated for baby, and emerge stronger than you did when you started the pregnancy. Or you can be depleted and be playing catch up for continually, pretty much, until you do the healing work or have a second child. And so I know we digressed a little, but
it's so potent. I love all of this, and I've seen that. I know some people who have had children and really had that time to rest and recuperate, and they look amazing. Everything about them is so vital and so alive, because I think they had that time, that ability to rest and recuperate, and have that new version of them be birthed as the mother and as that really vibrant self. And they just ooze this amazing energy. And I'm I want that. So it's amazing to have this perspective also, because I think there's some fear of oh, I'm not going to have the same body, I'm not going to be the same person, in kind of a negative way. And yes, it's not I'm not a mother, I haven't done this, but there is a transformation. And I think having that option of a transformation for this amazing new self on the
Mhm.
table is so encouraging.
Yes, it's very encouraging, right? Like that you can be better than you were before, which is not the narrative, right? The whole motherhood's a drag narrative that Hollywood has pushed forever,
Yeah.
the ragged mom who doesn't have time to brush her teeth. That's what we're afraid of becoming, like
Yeah.
losing community, our social life, losing our passions, and maybe previous generations, the baby boomers did have to make those sacrifices, but we don't actually. Like there's a hack.
So
uh,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, it's beautiful. It is, and motherhood and parenthood and fatherhood is sacrifice. It is for sure, but it doesn't have to be done like lost and overwhelmed and anxious. You can enjoy the journey.
Totally. And I think like the more these conversations are part of the conversation, and I think it's also going to require so much creativity. Just like, let's think of this in a different way. And yeah, if you don't have that tribe, if you don't have that community, how
Mhm.
can you know this information in your early 20s so that you're preparing yourself for this later? Just it all circles into each other, and
All circles,
but
and
it feels like it's just there. Like you can create beautiful things in this life. I'm so determined to push that narrative.
yes, you are. It's amazing.
Okay, I feel like we're also on the cusp of this question, but I would love to touch into some misconceptions around fertility. Like we're already talking
Yeah,
about some of that, but I would love if you have some that you hear a lot or see a lot that you would love to
yeah.
kind of deconstruct.
Yeah. Well, I kind of touched on a little bit, but I want to revisit the whole age thing because a lot of women are very like panic and call me and be like, I'm 32 and I don't have a partner. Should I freeze my eggs? What should I do? Like,
Yeah.
or oh, I'm a day older, 35. I'm gonna need IVF, right? Because that's actually some of the misinformation that baby doctors are sharing or kind of indirectly sharing, you know what I mean? It's implying. I've heard a lot of different things. And so really you have to outsource your information. You can't just rely
Mm,
on one person's opinion. You know what I mean? You really want to do your homework for sure, first with yourself. But you can be 42 and have, I call that a chronological age, 42, years on the planet,
mhm.
but your reproductive age can be 28, 32.
Yeah.
And you can be 28, 32 with a reproductive age of 45,
Right.
right? Because it's about your lived experiences, it's about your lifestyle, it's about your point of view, it's about, all of it: diet, exercise, stress, sleep. In traditional Chinese medicine, they really say your womb health is all about how much qi is circulating your ovaries.
Mm,
So you can be an older woman, but have a ton of chi. And that's why you hear of women getting pregnant on the news, 60s, 70s, having twins. And people are like, oh my God. It's like, yes, we are fertile. We're not out to pasture after 35. Like, that's the patriarchy.
yeah.
That is give your body over to the system.
Yeah.
That's not pro woman, at all. And like my oldest client gave birth naturally at the height of COVID at 51 years old, first baby.
Amazing.
And
Wow.
she pushed her son out, and I've had very, very intense births with women in their 20s that, ended up being complicated.
Yeah.
So it's really like I tell people, forget about the age, but tell me about your diet, your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Tell me about your sleeping patterns. Tell me about, what are your stories in your family,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
That is more important than, oh, my birthday is, 1985 and it's over for me now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
That's a huge.
another and another misconception is that like either you're fertile or infertile. And it's
Mm,
not
right.
ever that black and white.
Right.
And I've worked with moms who are like trying to get pregnant, going through 5, 6 rounds of IVF. They
Mm,
take a pause, they step back, They say, okay, it's not going to happen, or at least not now, and we're done. We've beat ourselves up. We can't go on. Go on vacation, get pregnant on vacation, or like a
Yeah.
partner trying, getting pregnant, both unexplained, no reason. The marriage unfortunately failed. The mom's new boyfriend within 6 months pregnant, pregnant with new boyfriend, husband of 8 years, who she thought she was going to spend the rest of her life with.
Yeah.
No. Spirit Baby was like, he ain't the one.
I know. I love that. I love that like there's two things. There's one, that thread of mystery of like there's something so much bigger always going on, and it's hard to see, especially when we have tunnel vision of like, this is my person. I want this baby, and you're narrowing the scope, and then once you let it all go, it all happens. And I think it's coming back to that stress of like people doing IVF and doing things in a stressed way. It's like, yeah, that's a lot on your body, a lot on your system when you're forcing and trying and doing, and then you go on vacation and get pregnant because you're chilling, you're
Yeah,
relaxed.
you're relaxed. You're
And you also
relaxed.
like let go of that control of your life, and then
And then
a
boom, boom.
mystery is like, here's what
Here
you
it
really
is.
wanted.
Now we're aligned. Yeah. Quit that job that's killing you, that you hate. You
Yeah,
know,
right.
move cities where you just don't feel right in the city, and it's like ended for you. You like, these are the things that
Yeah.
sometimes is holding back the conception.
Mm, I love that. And I think that's, I never, like, I don't hear that talked about. And I think that's so important of just
Mhm.
how subtle our lives are, and how, like, right, those places where there's stickiness, addressing those, like realizing that those small things could be impacting really big things, because it's all always interconnected and at play. And how can we
Yeah.
bring that awareness to ourselves and our lives?
Wow, it's super empowering. It's super
Yeah.
empowering.
I love that. Well, you have a book and you have written about
You.
fertility, which is,
Yes.
oh my gosh, yes, stay
Is it?
fertile. I love the cover. So it's
It's on
so
Amazon.
it's so
um, yeah, it's there's a lot of long narratives about fertility. I just wanted to create like a quick handbook so you can read it cover to cover, or you can just go to the section that you're curious about. And
amazing.
some of it may seem obvious, but it's really like, are you doing those things fully to your best ability? And probably,
Uh,
not sometimes. You know what I mean? So it's a nice reminder of like, these are the things that you can do to, you know, keep yourself fertile, to stay fertile. A lot of women are pushing having a family later in life, as we know, because again,
yeah,
we really want to live and be free and know, and find ourselves. I think that's really important for moms who are waiting later in life. Don't feel bad, because you're bringing all this wisdom, all this life experience,
yeah,
usually a stronger financial backing and grounding. Um, that some babies really want that. They like, I want a mature mommy. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And some babies like, no, I'm cool. We'll raise each other together. Like, there's all sorts of contracts going.
serious.
um, so no, there's no one right to contract, but for sure, it's definitely, if you're. I wrote the book with people in their late, 20s, mid to mid 30s in mind, because that's the real window to start paying attention. Obviously, we want it to happen in teens, but like, that's the real window to kind of be making this a priority and just doing little things every day. Like, they're not even big tasks that can, again, keep you fertile, keep your cycle regular, keep your egg quality up. And just make sure, again, there's a lot of chi circulating in there, so that if you're going to postpone it to starting a family at 35 or 40 or post 40, that you can do it. And a lot of my clients actually are over 35.
Amazing. Yeah.
So,
I want to implement all of it. I really like, I know I want children, and like I am turning 33 and I don't feel old or anything, and I just want to pay attention. I want to be aware. I want to do the small things, take
yeah.
care of my body so that I don't have to feel that stress, and just trust
Mm,
my timeline and process. And I think a lot of people are in that space and feel that way. So
yeah.
that is amazing. Is there
Yeah.
any like little tip you could share that you find helpful?
Well, we could do a whole pod on this, but
Sure.
just to, like, and everyone's talking about it more and more, but your gut health is directly related to your fertility.
Okay.
That usually when I am like working with someone who is in the quote unquote age where it shouldn't be a problem and
Yeah.
they're and it's not happening. I always like, let's stop trying and let's really look into what is the state of your gut health, your microbiome, how much are you actually absorbing? Because you can take prenatals to your blue in the face, but still be iron deficient and have all the deficiencies, right? And so that's something, you know, if you can take all the pills, like they always want to market you this supplement and that supplement and this, but what are you actually taking in,
Yeah.
right? And how are you, what is the process of digestion for your body?
Totally.
That is huge. If you're eating inflammatory foods and and you've been trying to get pregnant, stop. Like if you like just I'm very direct, you know, just stop.
Yeah.
You know, because yes, if your cycle's regular and you've been trying for 3 to 6 months and there aren't any red flags, but you're eating and you're feeling bloated all the time from the foods that you eat,
Mm,
you know that bloat,
oh,
right? We all
yeah.
know that bloat. That is a sign that could be blocking you from getting pregnant. And so that's something I think everyone should just do a U-Haul, like take those fecal tests, send your
Yeah.
bowel movements in. It's great, you know, it's, but you can find out what
Yeah.
is in there and what can we improve, you know, taking probiotics, eating fermented foods, huge part of that. So that's one tip. I think people don't realize that
Yeah. I
they may
haven't.
have a gluten, they may have a slight, ever so slight gluten intolerance that in their regular life it doesn't make them stop eating bread or pizza or whatever.
Oh,
But when
yeah.
it comes to fertility, that slight intolerance to gluten can block the whole process. So I'm a big fan of, again, experimenting. You know, there's no right or wrong way, but experimenting with going gluten free, um, just and leaning more into you know, other healthier grains like quinoa and amaranth and, you know, those, you know, teff and more ancient grains that don't bloat the body.
Yeah.
Especially if you've been trying a while and haven't been successful and you don't know why.
Amazing. That's
Mm.
such a good one. I haven't heard that. So I love that so much. And it's going back to that theme of like subtle things can make all the difference and
Very
really
subtle.
preparing your body and that gut health, right? Like start with that. Like right now, if you're wanting to move on this journey,
Yeah.
cultivate good gut health. And that's going to just help your whole body in general.
Your whole body anyway. Your
It's so
whole
awesome.
body. Yeah, your whole body anyway. And so it doesn't have to be like an overnight, because for me, part of how my like millennial like overachiever perfectionist have to get straight A's, you know, we grew up that way, right?
Yeah.
So we want lists and we want to check them and we want to be perfect. And so we can use that energy in a way that's not stressful. That's the other thing. So as I mentioned before, stress is anti-pregnancy. I'd
Mm,
rather you eat McDonald's and be carefree and laugh and be full of joy than, you know, shop at Whole Foods or, you know, all the fancy whatever
yeah.
and stress.
Mm,
That is the one thing that really does lower fertility. And, you know, we can manage it. We can put our mind on a leash, whether it's therapy, whether it's hypnotherapy, whether it's somatic work, but really take the time to get your anxiety in check, and not in the form necessarily of putting a pill on it. You know, for some people, they need medical assistance to help them with that. But if you're someone who, you know, doesn't have a condition per se, right?
yeah.
You know, not have a strong history of depression per se, but you do lean on that stress side of things or that
Yeah.
worry side of things or that overthinking side of things, that's something to like rein in during this time, because pregnancy itself is can be very stressful. It's a stress to the body,
Right.
more weight, You have to breathe, you have more oxygen, you have to pump more blood, your heart has to work double time, your digestive system has to work double time, everything's working hard.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
you
preparing for that, really, it's like there's so
Yeah,
much.
you want to enter it strong as much as you can, like the way you would enter the Olympics, like top of your game, trained, eating well, and the right mindset. You don't go into the game thinking, oh, I'm probably going to lose.
Right.
Right? Like you go into like, let's go. You know what I mean? And if you end up losing, then you try again next time. But you go into it with the intention you're gonna win. And winning looks different for everybody. And so usually I recommend people make little goals for themselves, smart goals for themselves that they can accomplish. It's maybe a little bit of a stretch,
Yeah.
not, an attainable goal, but a little bit of a stretch. And then you can start building that confidence and again building that trust with your body, so that whoever you're talking to, a fertility doula, a fertility expert, an IVF professional, your gynecologist, your OBG, whoever you're talking to, your midwife, you're going in with knowledge of self.
Yeah.
So you're letting them know about you and your condition and then seeking their counsel. And that's that's like the whole opposite of like, I have no idea what's going on. Let me just go to the doctor. And sometimes we get second opinions, right? Sometimes we've heard of that, second opinions, right? But your first opinion should be yourself. And the second opinion should be the doctor.
Yes, I love that. That's such an amazing and powerful reframe of, like knowing ourselves and trusting that. Okay, I want to pivot a little bit because I think that before birth, like most of us have been preventing pregnancy for many years. And, I think that there's a lot more knowledge coming about birth control and all of these things, but I just want to tap in with you about birth control and fertility from that perspective of going many years preventing birth and then making that transition into inviting birth in. And yeah, I would love to know just, birth control from a holistic perspective from your perspective.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, we can maybe just touch on it, but I think it's important because most people have a period of preventing pregnancy.
100%. So I think in general, us women, community at large, just need to have a more honest and nuanced conversation about birth control that's more holistic, right? Because you get one little sliver of information from the person who's prescribing it to you, and that's that. And so many of us, were prescribed as young children for acne or for other weird, things. We're talking about 10, 20 years experience on birth control. But, so while hormonal contraception have given people like the freedom and, reproductive freedom, it also comes with like some real consequences. Things like nutrient depletion, mood changes, libido loss, gut health, right? So birth control, not good for your microbiome. And in general, a total disconnection from the natural rhythms of your body, right? So from a holistic lens, I see hormonal birth control as something that can just mask symptoms for the most part, rather than address root causes. And essentially, it's turning off the cycle. It's just saying, cycle, turn off, which, as I mentioned earlier, your cycle's like your vital sign, your fifth vital sign. So we're turning it off. But when we deepen our connection to our body and when we learn how to track our ovulation the old-fashioned way, we can tune into those subtle cycle shifts, and that's when we gain the power. And I'm not just talking about, putting it on the app, which the apps can be helpful as a general guide to know when you're expecting your period. And apps are great, but you can absolutely, and this has been tested like through, trials, that you can absolutely rely on the fertility awareness method to avoid pregnancy. And people also need to know that birth control is not 100%, and plenty of babies are conceived while someone's on birth control. And so, it's really like, so even if you are on birth control, you should also kind of be in this space of knowing your body and trying to have as deep a connection as possible.
Right.
um but yeah, it's tough because some people get off birth control and they're pregnant immediately, and
Yeah.
then other people it takes a really long time because their body is just so out of whack, and
Yeah.
the periods are gone for months, or they're bleeding for months at a time, and clearly that the cycle is needing healing.
Yeah. I know, and it is complex. Like everyone's different. Everyone's ability to tune into their body is different. So I'm always
Mm.
just encouraging people to be curious and to like look at their options. I feel really lucky. I was only ever on the pill for 1 year in all of my time, and I've just done mostly fertility awareness and tap. I had an IUD for 1 year too, the copper one. It was a horrible nightmare. I hated that, but it's like you have to, there is trial and error, and
Mm.
it is like finding what's good for you, but just questioning the status quo is always my thing. Like
Question it.
just question it, just see what else is out there,
Yeah.
because there are other options, especially as technology advances. Like I've used natural cycles and done, basal body temperature. Like it feels very safe, very accurate, and I've had a great time with it. So,
Yeah, no, it is your cervical mucus, your
yeah.
temperature, as you mentioned, even just your emotional, like kind of,
Oh, yeah.
oh, the same time this month, I'm a little moody. I'm
Totally.
super introverted. I'm super introverted. Like you'll see that each month it will show up.
Totally.
And that's where the trust is actually built,
Mm,
right? So you don't
yeah.
have to do it in fear. When you're having sex, you're not in fear,
Yeah.
and we won't have time on this one, but we can also encourage our partners
Yeah.
to learn semen retention. I don't know if you've come across this one, but it's a Taoist ancient Chinese sexual practice of separating their orgasm from ejaculation.
Yeah.
And that again, everyone's bandwidth and ability to master these spiritual principles, but still, like, what happens if we, like you said, be curious, like what's
Yeah.
possible when we try different things and practice, like anything can be learned, but
Totally.
I think it does require a willingness to do work, because a lot of our culture is, let's just have the fastest,
Yeah.
easy, do it for you solution. And that's not really what fertility, pregnancy, parenting is really about. I mean, it
Totally.
can be about that, but then you'll have those kinds of experiences.
Yeah, I love that thread and sex, right? Like there's just so much here, like all of these things that have to do with reproducing have like their biological implications and ways that we're set up and are just deeply spiritual. And there's
Yeah.
so much there, and if we slow down all of the processes and get curious and learn our bodies, learn ourselves, develop that connection also with a partner is so magical to like really go into this realm and open a lot of doors. There's so much spiritual and personal growth and exploration available to us. And yeah, it's not like a quick and easy thing. And you're going to gain something. Like there's a lot of doors to open.
Yeah, that that common expression of things that challenge us or are real valuable, like, you know what I mean, like
Oh,
something that your law degree or your medical degree, that was hard, blood, sweat, and tears, you know what I mean, like nothing, like even the best relationships, that when you see the couple and like, oh my gosh, you got the power couple, you make it so easy, but they know the work they're putting in, they're
yeah.
constantly committing and recommitting to each other, constantly being divine reflections of each other, constantly holding themselves accountable for truest authenticity, like that's the real stuff. And so having enough resources to even begin that journey of like living truly authentic, because it's really what it is about, it's authenticity, right?
Mhm.
Being your true self.
Yeah, I love that. And I do think that even just tuning into your cycle and learning that cycle is such a way to really experience deeper layers of yourself. Like,
Mhm.
as you were saying, like those ebbs and flows of I'm feeling really introverted, I'm feeling extroverted. Like, I know my boobs get super sore, like sometime before my period, and then they stop being sore, and then I know 2 days after that I'll get my period. It's like
Exactly.
these subtle little things that give
It's
me
cute.
indications of exactly where I am in my own cycle. And so I always know. And even if I'm going to be like early or late, I know because my
Yeah.
body has all these cues that I've
Yeah.
learned.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so powerful. Okay,
Mhm.
well, I mean, there's truly so much. So I want to kind of move us along, but I want to tap into, this is also a huge topic, but conscious conception. And like we've already been talking about preparing the body, which is sort of like the physical aspect of that, but conscious
Mhm.
conception and spirit babies and just sort of like a little bit more of a mystical
Yes.
part of all of this.
Let's go into it because, again, fertility is very much a spiritual, whether you're aware of it being spiritual or not, it doesn't require you to be aware of it. It
Yeah,
just,
I
it
love that.
intrinsically is.
Right.
And so, conscious conception is one of my favorite talks and favorite teaches.
I love
But yes, it is approaching conceiving a child with intention, with awareness, with your soul, with your spirit, with your mind, with your
it.
body. And it really means like preparing your body, yes, but also your heart. And literally
Mhm.
your baby lives like practically in your heart for most of pregnancy. Like they're kind of up here, in this rib cage area right below the heart,
Right.
and they're listening to your heartbeat. That's their white noise for like
Mhm.
9 months, a little less because the ear is fully formed, but they're feeling that vibration and that hum for so long. And that's what makes them feel safe. And so when our heart is energetically closed, right, or heavy with weight, we have a harder time connecting. But that's during the pregnancy, but also pre-pregnancy. So conscious conception is like, why do I want to be answering questions like, why do I want to be a parent? And really, again, going back to that authenticity, going deep on why you want to do this. Because if you're doing it because you're supposed to, or because of your age, or because your partner wants you to, like that gets complicated. Right. Because the channel of the spirit baby, it's very pure. They're here to love you. They're here to support you. And they are here to help you evolve, right?
Yeah.
And that's not always comfortable.
Yeah.
But why do I want to be a parent? What am I offering? I'm in service, right?
Mm,
It's not. It's moving away from something I own, like this is my kid,
yeah.
to to like dharma, to like that like what is my purpose is to nurture another, so to be a portal
Yeah.
to safely receive, gestate, and to offer the world, right, the baby, but then also nurturing and protecting and guiding not from a place of ego or fear or hyper
Mhm.
anxiety and stress. Like you've heard of situations where the mom loved their baby so much, like the kid like moved halfway across the country,
Right.
right? Because so all of those things, too much, too little, like the balance. But
Yeah.
first, asking yourself, why do I really want this? Because that's really important. And then, what kind of life do I want to create for this child?
Mm,
Truly, because if it's a surprise pregnancy, it might be a guy you met at the bar.
yeah.
You may be in school and not really financially grounded, right? That's a different kind of conception. But we're talking about someone, let's say, for example, in a standard kind of situation, we got married, okay, we're committed, maybe we bought the house, like we've put our ducks in the row, and we're like, okay, let's start trying.
Yeah.
It's more than just stopping alcohol and getting off birth control,
Mhm.
right? It's really about taking a step back, asking these really hard questions of each other,
Yeah.
right? Like, what is your parenting style? How are you going to feel to see me in pain? How comfortable, if this has never come up before, like, what's your experience in the medical world? Like, is there trauma there? What's your birth story? If
Right.
you have living parents, I always recommend everyone I work with find out in detail as much as
Mhm.
you possibly can about your mom's pregnancy experience, the
Yeah.
energy around her, even look up things that were happening politically that she would be watching on the news or whatever.
Right.
Um, any life family traumas going on, like your mom's mom died when you were expecting, or anything like that.
Yeah.
um like really find out, was an epidural used, did you have a C-section, were you induced, right? Did they honor your timing, or did they force you out? And you can even start to look at like how your own birth trauma has impacted your life
Mm.
in the way that you operate in the world. Because while babies don't remember their births,
Yeah.
it's a energetic, emotional imprint. So
Yeah.
if it was scary, that's what gets imprinted on baby. If
Yeah.
like it was lack, if it was loneliness, if it was not being, no agency, no power, right?
Yeah.
Those themes tend to run through the life. And so at any point, it can be healed just by telling your child, your 2-year-old, your 3-year-old, their birth story and what happened to them can help kind of soul retrieve the pieces of them they lost. And it's better to do that. That's a gift you can give, because
Mm.
shit happens and we're
Yeah.
not going to be perfect and trauma happens, but we can heal,
Yeah.
right? As early on the earlier side versus carrying it into adulthood, and we're like, we don't know what's wrong with us, we have everything we could possibly want materially and we're still not happy. Like I always say, like, go back to your birth story.
Mm.
Like, because you might have, oh, that thing happened when you were 12, or that thing happened in high school, but like this is the area that people kind of forget about. So
Yeah.
really just
It's huge.
aligning fully with why you're doing it, and then taking a very intentional approach to call in a soul.
Yeah. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for all of that. So,
Yeah.
so deep and so powerful, and right, like that intention, and there's a lot. There's a lot in this. And I love the two sides, like you saying that even if you're not spiritual, etc., it's still going to be happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And if you do have the consciousness and the curiosity and want to show up for this big initiation, you
Mm-hmm.
can. And there's a beautiful portal that is there around conception and birth, and it's just magical to me.
Yes, and wise women have always supported women through this process. Like it's
Yeah.
dirt. So to think that you're supposed to figure it out on your own with your husband and your dog in your apartment,
Right.
no. You know what I mean? That's just not how it was ever done in any part of the world ever, to raise
Ever.
babies in isolation.
Yeah, and that is like the power of having birth practitioners like you, doulas, wise
Yeah.
women, people who have attended births for a long time, because we're not in the village, we're not attending births the way that we did in community, where a lot of women in the village like knew how to hold that space. There was all of the aunties and grandmas and people who you learned all of these little details, the
Yeah.
spiritual parts, the physical parts, like the whole journey.
Oh,
We're so
journey.
disconnected from it.
Yeah.
And I feel like there is a revival, though, of people reclaiming this and wanting something different. And so
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
super exciting. And
Super.
I love it. Okay. Is there anything else in that realm that you want to touch on?
Yeah. Well, we can talk a little bit about spirit babies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, this is one of my favorite things to explore, because like, what is a spirit baby? So
Yeah.
spirit babies essentially are the souls of your future children. Some of them, sometimes we call them star seeds, and a lot of times we might interact with them in our dreams, in meditation, or even just in quiet moments. Some spirit babies communicate through like a song on that comes on somewhere, or just different little stories or synchronicities that kind of are telling you like, like motherhood might be a thing for me. Like, like it's those little subtle things. But basically it's really, to connect with them, you have to really soften your energy field,
Mm.
because they are very like pure light energy. And so sometimes, again, not necessarily our fault, but in living in the big city and moving and shaking that we do, sometimes our energy is very dense. And so sometimes you can't hear or see or feel the connect when they're trying to connect. But you can, there's stories of spirit baby communication like years before the baby came, like years.
Yeah.
Before even you've lost your virginity, you're having pregnancy dreams, for example. That's a very common experience for women. So it's really first is just opening up, like, hey, like if there's any spirit babies out here, like I'm ready. I want to listen. I want to communicate with you. Even just having that intention can open the door. You can write to them. You can create an altar for them. Again, these are more spiritual practices, but you can like write a letter. You can just have them in your thoughts, you know, and visualize like what it might feel like to you. And some of those visualizations, like, oh, I've always visualized myself, you know, in water giving birth. That could be the
Yeah.
baby telling you, I want a water birth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they have preferences. They have their own timing. And so there's wisdom there. They can help you find the partner if you don't have a partner. They can help you change jobs. They're like your little angels.
Yeah.
And they want to come and be with you. And right now, like actually on a spiritual note, like there's a lot of advanced conscious souls trying to enter the planet right now. There's more awakened kind of next level kind of energies trying to come through, and not enough conscious parents to come to receive them.
Yeah.
So they're really here to kind of like save the planet essentially.
I love that. And there's a lot less people having babies. So I'm sure they're like,
There's
hey,
a lot of souls.
anyone out there, we want to come through.
It's a gift to be in this body. Sometimes we forget because of traumas and things that happen to us, and we start, you know, resenting our body or hating on our body or like feeling stuck in our body. But to them, to the angels, like we are living, we are heaven. You know, we get to experience
Truly.
love and music and food, and we get to, you know, interact with matter.
Oh my
The
God.
angels in the spirit realm, you know, don't in that way. So when it's someone, when they're coming through, you can actually invite a very high vibration spirit baby.
Yeah.
But if your energy field is low,
Mm.
right, you'll attract a lower, maybe like maybe a spirit that has maybe more lessons to learn, maybe a little bit more denser energy, right? So it's all about energy, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's a very subtle, soft, receptive. You mentioned that earlier, learning how to receive.
Yeah.
Because that's really what conception is. Like you're taking, like in a heteronormative relationship, you're taking in the penis, you're receiving his seed, you're letting it get there because the uterus is trying to kill it. That's why most of the sperm, you know, they die. They don't make it because as soon as it's in there, the uterus is like foreign invader, kill, kill, kill.
Hi.
And only the healthy sperms actually even make it anywhere near the uterus. And so you know, to get to even the egg, you know, so it's very much so. If you have this sense or you have this knowing, like I just have always known I'm meant to be a mother or a father, like you can tap into that and you can help it bring it closer to you. And the timing may be different, right? Like it may not be the timing or the person or the place that you thought. So again, back to the mystery. But it definitely is a foundation of like that you can parenting. One of my favorite books is called Parenting Begins Before Conception. And
Mm.
it really talks about that like
Yeah.
you can start teaching them and asking questions and engaging like, well, how should we do this? And see what comes and journal. And then once you you know have a baby, you can actually reflect and see like, wow, how did I know? I knew she was going to be a girl. I didn't even need to do the sonogram. I knew it was a girl.
Yeah.
A lot of women have that power awakened, and even if before they weren't that intuitive or they didn't consider themselves to be super intuitive,
Yeah.
pregnancy actually opens that up for a lot of people.
I've heard that my mom has had some really powerful experiences in her pregnancy and pregnancies. I have brothers as well, but I love this aspect and I love what you shared, especially about like if you want to be a parent and just raising your vibration, like doing the work, you know, healing your own wounds and trauma so that you can really bring as much openness as one can. Like we're all gonna, you know, no one's perfect and that's like part of it also. I do think
Physically
that
imperfect, yeah.
I do think that like spirit babies also know the type of parent that they're going, like the challenges they're facing. That's my personal belief that like we choose our lives before we get here. And so
Mhm.
they know, and like we still can do that work, and that just how beautiful to communicate to the other side and like have that baby be one of your angels. And I've had some really profound spirit baby experiences, and I know that they're out there. And I did one of them, I sent on a mission to find, their father. I'm like, okay, you want to come here? I can't do this alone. Help me from that realm.
Yeah, 100%.
Send him
Yes.
on a little mission.
No, and they can help. They want to help. I just got goosebumps. That's how spirit babies communicate with me. It's like through like goosebumps, shivers, or songs, dreams, or just straight downloads.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a
Um,
powerful realm to tap into, and I really do think on it's available to people. Like I think that, as you said, like there's so many different ways, songs, experiences, journaling, like opening up that dialogue, just even saying like, "Hey, I'm open to communicate if there's a spirit baby out there who's connected to me." I love
mhm,
that.
mhm.
Okay, there's so much, but I want to get a little bit into birth. Birth is also just another part of this whole conversation is the central theme that we are skirting around in all these different ways. But I really want to get into birth, and there's a whole industry around it, which is complex, and we can just touch into this standard way that people think they have to birth. And then I would
Mhm.
love to just dive into how you support and your views and a holistic perspective and other options people have.
Totally. So, yeah, so the medical, industrial complex has really taken birth from women and placed it under fluorescent lights and
Mm,
machines and have replaced touch and connection and
yeah.
dialogue with machines and tests and over testing.
Yeah.
And again, when you're going into the space with fear and anxiety, the system, well intentioned may individual doctors and practitioners be, the system feeds off of the fear because
Yeah.
birth is a non medical event. There's
Mm.
actually intrinsically nothing medical about it. It can become a medical event, right? With a special circumstance, complications, high risk factors for sure. And so there is a place for Western medicine in birth. And we need, some women actually really need those life-saving interventions. And we're grateful to have them when things are challenging. However, the majority of us women, we're born to give birth. We're here today because our mother successfully gave birth. And
Yeah.
so we have forgotten those ways, just like the same thing, knowing your cycle and the fertility. It's the same thing here.
Yeah.
But the birthing industry feeds off of ignorance and fear and the power dynamic that doctors have some over us, right? Meaning like they're the fancy doctor with the degree. I know nothing, right? And because I'm so afraid to, of the worst possible outcome, a miscarriage, a late term loss, or, birth, I'm just going to do whatever the doctor says.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, the true experts, I'll say, in physiological, natural, normal birth are midwives.
Mm.
You yourself first, you yourself first, and then would be the midwives, because actually um, OBs learned everything from lay midwives. And typically back in the day, there were Black Southern midwives, right? So
Mm.
it's a dark history, of
Yeah.
course.
There's a lot there.
Very dark history. But, just less than 200 years ago, 95% of Americans were born at home.
Right.
And then there was an intentional campaign to instill fear, to be like, come to the white doctor coats and trust, don't, it's, this illusion of safety in the hospital.
Right.
Um, and I support moms in all settings: home birth, birthing center, hospital. I'd say the majority
Yeah.
of my births are hospital because that's where you really need the advocate, because there's so much
Yeah.
going on and there's so much you don't know. And very much like in Europe and Canada and Japan, there's different, it's different, but here it's a very assembly line care. And so they're not really thinking about each mom and baby. They're looking at just kind of the rules that lawyers make so that the hospital and the doctors don't get sued, right? That's always there. And then maximizing profit. So anything that has the agenda of not getting sued and maximizing profit is never going to really be super it. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to health. But yeah, we have to reclaim our bodies, our birth, our babies. The C-section rate is on the rise globally, and that is a major health crisis that people are talking about. And there's no shame in having what I call a belly birth. And belly births can be beautiful and sacred and spiritual too. In fact, the first C-section was done in ancient Uganda. It's not even a Western concept. Okay. But, we've been taking babies out of the bellies for a long time if we need to, right? But like that being pushed on women and labors being rushed along and, saying, oh, this woman is stalled. She can't make progress. But no one's asking where her mind is. If she's riddled with fear, she's shut down her labor. There's nothing wrong with her cervix. There's nothing wrong with her baby. She doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, there's an illusion of safety in the hospital. And that's why doula support, birth doula support is so vital for all women everywhere, regardless if you want a natural birth or you want an epidural or whatever. Yeah. It's like I like the analogy of like going to your very important court case without your lawyer.
Right.
You would never do that. You would not do that. If you were about to serve jail time or not, if you have the resources, you're going to hire the best lawyer you possibly can. Yeah. And that's like more of a negative scenario, but like you get my point, right? So the doula isn't just the emotional support and the physical support and the guide sherping you through, but it's also your advocate and making sure that you're not getting swept up into things that aren't actually necessary. Right? We're all about safety. Healthy mom and healthy baby is everyone. Doula, doctor, midwife, nurse, everyone's on board with that. Survival, right? Did the mom survive? Did the baby survive? We're like, yeah, we're on board for that. But can we do something a little bit more than survive? Can women thrive? Can women have empowered experience? Can the early postpartum be gentle on the body and the bonding initiated and breastfeeding, if she's choosing to nurse, happen easefully, right? So these are the things that we are, in lack of better terms, fighting for, making space for, prioritizing and saying like, this is my body, this is my baby, and I don't need a fancy medical degree to know what I know. Yeah. Right. In either direction, because some women, especially women of color, are not listened to, are underestimated. And then we have these intense, crazy maternal death rates, especially in the Black community and the brown community. But even compared to Europe, our maternal death rates are very high. But it's not talked about. Yeah. It's not talked about. And so this is it for some women, it really is life or death. And it's not in the way that you think. Again, it's an illusion of safety. And so going in, even if you're choosing hospital birth, you want to know, tip number one, who is this provider? What is the likelihood that they're going to actually be the one to deliver your baby? Are they in a practice of 12 rotating doctors who you will most likely not have this doctor that you love so much? And you might have someone totally with a totally different energy, bedside manner, and style and approach show up your birth and you're meeting them for the first time. That is a huge disadvantage. Yeah. The second thing is find out what is their C-section rate. Yeah. Because let's say you hire me as your doula. Let's say you're like, Bailey, I want to do hypnobirthing. I want to learn all your classes. But I'm not ready for a home birth. Okay. Yeah. And I know myself, because I always say women should birth where they feel the safest, where they are going to do their best birthing. So if it's the hospital, great. That's where you should be. Yeah. However, if you are hiring a doula and investing in that time, money, resources, and then your doctor has like a 50% C-section rate and you want a vaginal birth, that is an unrealistic expectation. Right. The doula is not a magical unicorn And sometimes we do make magic happen,
I'm
right?
sure all the
And
time.
we do make a little magic happen. However, it's like the metaphor I like to use is like climbing, Mount Everest without a pack in heels.
That's really
You
hard.
can do it, but it's hard AF. Right? It's like going to an Italian restaurant and asking for Mexican food. You don't have it.
Yeah.
Going to an OB and asking for natural birth for most OB practice. Now there are some wonderful OBs in New York City and all throughout the country
Yeah,
that
I'm sure.
act that provide care in this way, in this more midwifery model of care. But the standard, we're talking about the standard care, is that they don't know you. They just want to, move forward, fill a bed, keep it moving, right? And they're overworked, and we're not demonizing doctors at all. Like,
Yeah.
they're well intentioned, but the system in which they're trained, like most OB residents actually never deliver or attend a natural unmedicated birth before they graduate medical school.
Wow.
So they haven't even witnessed what physiological birth looks like, what upright birth looks like. So in that regard, and they're meant to see those like 1% of moms are like super crazy traumatic, medicals, and then they apply it to everyone else who really just needs trust, space, safety, privacy.
Yeah.
Think about having sex in front of an audience in fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
Probably not your best sex. You know what I mean? So think about giving birth, where you don't feel safe, and you have to open.
Yeah.
You have to open. So that requires dim lit rooms, relaxing environment. So that can be made in the hospital. But again, it's like making something that it's not, and we do the best we can. And a lot of my clients, we labor at home and then go to the hospital at the end so that we can avoid medical interventions. But, certainly a lot of moms know they want pain relief. And so they're going to be doing a lot of their laboring at the hospital, but they're still like, just making sure that your preferences are being honored, and the timing of certain, interventions, and the way that we're using those interventions. We want to be intentional. We definitely want to be intentional.
Thank you for sharing all of that. There's so much. It's so potent. And again, coming back to just like preparing yourself years in advance, like knowing your options, knowing all of this, exploring what's possible so that you can set yourself up for that birth that you hope to have. And sometimes it doesn't happen, and that's totally okay. But giving yourself the best shot of that beautiful, serene thing. Okay. Well, I want to just touch on how you support women, like your view of birth, and just, your a little tap into what you provide and how you support, and how people can find you too.
Totally. So, for me, birth is, as cliche as it sounds, a rites of passage. It is kind of, you might have heard of the metaphor of the maiden, the mother, and the crone, and how, our modern day society doesn't really honor or recognize when we are women and men going through these different big changes in our life, where in indigenous cultures, it's built in. There's rites of passage for children, for men. There's ceremony around the blood and the bleeding. There's, obviously we know about wedding ceremonies, right? And, different things like that, but going deeper with that and really honoring that. So yes, baby showers are fun and cute and you get a lot of gifts, but is that filling your cup? Is that filling you with confidence about what, is it even acknowledging what you're about to do? There's one of my favorite books is Babies Aren't Pizza. Like, the doctor's not delivering you. We're not delivering anything.
Yeah.
Nobody's delivering you. You are birthing.
Right.
Nobody's delivering anything and nobody's catching anything. This isn't baseball, right? Okay. We got to change our language too. But really, it is, we talk about, it's a portal. It's a powerful process of transformation. To go from maiden, there's a sadness, there's a grief, That's an intrinsically a part of this super happy, well planned out. Let's say you did have a conscious conception. You call that baby and you want this baby more than you want your next breath.
Right.
But, and there's a sadness for your old life because it is dying
Yeah.
and you will never be the same. But what you can be is a newer, improved, stronger, more powerful, more empowered, more wise version of yourself.
Yeah.
That's the replacement.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then like going from motherhood to crone, and some of us have a challenge getting old, and we're botoxing and doing all these things to not age, right? And like fighting the cycle. And so that's really what birth is for me, is surrendering into
Mhm.
these huge life moments and having your village and having your support system there to cheer you on, to celebrate your accomplishments, to pull you up when you're down.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be done alone in this, even in a kind of dad, mom, grandma, grandpa, uncle scenario. That's still like, you need more than that. It really is like a network of, and that's your kind of one of your first tasks, either in the preconception stage or pregnancy stages. Start building your tribe, your community. Your friends that you had before may or may not serve this pregnancy,
Yeah.
right? Their energy may or may not serve it, and knowing when to boundaries, in place.
Yeah.
So I'm very, a lot of my clients call me a one-stop baby shop because I just nerded out on baby for over 12 years. And I have a master's degree in infancy from Bank Street. So I started off teaching everything from 20 months to second grade in the classroom. And I kind of just got younger and younger and younger until I was in the womb. And I was like, oh, well, that's where it all begins. Let's start with the egg because brain development begins in the womb.
Oh,
And a lot of these learning challenges, these so-called learning challenges that, children are being diagnosed with, some of that has its roots in the prenatal and the first 3 years of life, and the birth and the first 3 years of life, for sure.
yeah.
The brain is highly sensitive to experiences from pregnancy to about age 3. About 85% of your baby's brain is fully formed by age 3, and then extends a little bit to age 7. There's like there's a window of opportunity, I'd like to say. So I like to just really bring, like I said, it's very east meets west. So I do fertility coaching on any kind of level, whether it's, again, prep and proactivity, whether it's, trying, beginning to try, whether it's we've been trying for a while, whether it's, IUI and IVF, losses, miscarriages. Like, when you have a miscarriage, you are a mother. If you have an abortion, you are a mother. And sending that soul off, and with love and light in either scenario, no shame, no guilt. That's not necessary, because spirit doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It's all about intention. And I've had some very beautiful home assisted abortions before, that, it was like, I want you, baby, I love you, baby, just not now. Just not now. And that's what a miscarriage actually is baby saying, I want you, but just not right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or I just wanted to come and experience conception, and that's all I wanted in this time. So it's not anything you did wrong, right? So fertility support, and then I do pregnancy coaching. So people hire me as early as 4 weeks, even earlier, and it's like,
Yeah.
I'm lost. How do I navigate the first trimester? I connect my clients to a lot of resources and referrals and body work, and really just helping you navigate like what the options are.
Yeah.
I do a lot of fear processing. That's a big part of my work, is
Mm.
helping moms go from, I'm scared, I'm totally afraid of this process, of the pain, of all the many things, becoming a parent, losing my identity, finances, me and our relationships rough, so many different things, and coming to the end of pregnancy like, okay, things that I was able to solve, I did, and I feel great about that. Things that are unresolved, I have a game plan when I'm able to address it later, and really just surrendering, right? So it's like preparation, have a vision. I help them, cultivate a vision for birth, have tools and good information that's timely. So you're not behind the 8 ball. Like, pregnancy isn't something that you want to learn about hindsight. You know what I mean? Because sometimes we have a birth that's very traumatic, and then we go into the second birth, our second baby, with new eyes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I like to do is help first timers have that first good experience if
Mhm.
possible, right? Like what's in our control.
Yeah.
There's so much not in our control, but there's actually quite a lot in our control. And so I really try to help my clients just control it. Channel that
Yeah.
overachiever control freak. We talk about our style, right? Into where it's meant to be, and the rest is surrender. The rest is a trust and faith walk.
Mhm.
And then for clients who are in New York City, although I do travel sometimes for LA, for births and different things, but in New York City, I do birth support. So in home and hospital, birthing center, home birth. I had a home birth 2 days ago that was very beautiful. Um, Postpartum support. So as IBCLC stands for Board Certified Lactation Consultant. So I do have a lactation practice where I see clients, usually reimbursable through insurance, but really just helping you through any infant infant feeding challenges. And there isn't one right way. Some of my clients are, exclusively formula feed. Some of them do a combination of breast milk and formula. Some are using donor milk. Some are pumping exclusively. But really just kind of like birth, there's all this misconception about breastfeeding and
Yeah.
trauma and layers around breastfeeding that I help clients just kind of unpack to help them achieve whatever their personal goals are for that.
Mhm.
Um, Overnight support, sleep support, all of it, like
Oh,
postpartum healing, honoring the 40 days.
yeah.
I really walk with my clients from start to finish, honestly. And some people find me at different stages of their journey, and that's great too. But I love, holding someone's hand through the entire process. I can see like the transformation in front of my eyes. And then after the birth happens, it's like, whoa, like I just did that. Like I am so proud of myself. Like the level of confidence and pride, like that's what really got me in this work, is just seeing moms and women just feeling empowered and feeling like I just did the hardest thing that the human body can even do. Actually,
Yeah.
what can I not do? Like go start that business, go climb Mount Everest, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Because nothing is harder
Yeah.
than a conscious birth.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just so amazing, so deep. There's so much there. You clearly have invested so much time and energy in your dharma, in your path. I'm
Thank
so
you.
grateful for your wisdom and everything that you shared with us. And like you said, like birth is where it all starts, and bringing consciousness to this helps humanity evolve, helps us like do this life thing in a good way. And so thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And
And
people can find me on Instagram, fertile_bliss, for my fertility work, and also my overall, all my services, moonstonebabies.com.
yes, amazing. I will link those in the show notes.
Yeah.
And Bailey, if you're in New York, definitely yeah, you're the doula of my dreams. So
Oh, yes,
I love
yes,
it. I love it so much. And yeah, and her book, that will also be linked.
yes. Awesome. I hope
Okay.
it helps.
Oh, I'm
And
sure.
definitely anyone can reach out to me for questions or support. And that's the main thing that I want to like people to take home with, like you're worth investing in, like spending time with yourself, investing in yourself, your self-care. It doesn't have to be an afterthought. It actually should be the front runner in this time period of your life. If you've always been a people pleaser, someone that puts yourself last, so many of us are, we give and we don't receive. This is
Mm,
the time to learn how to receive and not feel guilty and not feel like you're a burden. It's okay to ask for help. And then you can take what you learn. A lot of my clients will say, oh my gosh, like I ran into a client that I had like a birth I did about 8 years ago, and I didn't recognize her right away. She's like, I think you're my doula. We were at a comedy show, and she's like, I think you're my doula. And I'm like, I was? And then I started looking at her, and I was like, oh my, and she showed me the picture. I was like, oh my God, yes, I do remember you. And she's like, you don't know the impact that you have. Like I'm still teaching women, like pregnant friends or, you know, cousins or family members, the stuff that you taught me
Yeah.
8 years ago and the ripple. And so that really just like
Oh,
warms my heart.
yeah. And like
So
that's how we
fulfilling.
change. That's how we change the world, right?
Yeah.
Like that is so amazing. So I'm so grateful for the work you're
Yes.
doing.
Thank you, Ayla. Thank you so
Okay.
much for inviting me. It was
Yes.
so awesome. I can talk about babies and fertility and
Went for it.
contraception all night.
It's amazing. Okay. Thank you.